I love video games. But recently I've been analysing new games and critiquing new systems, and I've noticed a slow but insidious trend toward games becoming more and more monetized, but not fairly monetized. Anti-player monetized.
It's interesting he's going to try to explain this, because from the get-go, he is trying to explain simply the singular pinnacle moment, that one point where everything changed around a complex system. And it is very rare, if not never, that a complex problem can be solved with a simple solution.
Let's begin. Let's go back to the 1980s and early 1990s. The video game revolution was kicking off, but home consoles weren't yet mainstream, so we went to arcades. You put your money in and played a game, effectively making arcades the socially accepted pay-to-play model. There was a very simple relationship between the game, the money, and the player. Pay money, get access to the whole game. Victory depends on your skill. Game designers knew it was a simple transaction, and they knew someone would simply
No. Arcades are still around. Most of them are geared towards an audience that is well over the age of 21 now, because that's the people that originally liked them, at least in my area. And so a lot of the arcades around me serve alcohol, and you pay a cover charge just like you would at a club to go dancing at, and you have unlimited access to all the games for free. And so you, every time it asks for another quarter, you just push the button and it says you put in another quarter. You don't actually give them money anymore. And I encourage you to go back and see what the game loop was like and how often it asks you for a quarter. I think you're going to find out real quick that, especially if the game had like a popular 1980s rock star involved, or IP that you know that later got a TV show or already had a TV show or something like that, that the arcade was an extension of their merchandising and was directly aiming to collect massive amounts of revenue for the arcade owner, and ideally create some value for the machine itself. It was not player-centric. It was player-able.
Simply play as long as they were able to, so they had to make the game hard so you would die more, and so pay more. This is why the Turtles game had that underwater bit. It's why House of the Dead bosses were damage sponges. It's why Ghosts and Goblins was everything that Ghosts and Goblins is. In the early days of home consoles, when people would rent games, we even called difficult levels blockbuster levels, designed to make the rental period longer, and so you'd have to keep renewing it. So why don't these...
But it's simpler than, like it's not... That's already looking past some of the fact that, like, some of the lives in arcades literally only gave you access to your ability that you needed, like, a limited number of times. It wasn't hard. You just literally needed this ability to beat that level, and the ability ran out unless you put in more quarters. It wasn't that some great amount of execution could overcome it. The world's best player and the world's worst player on some of the games that I've played are literally just both needing money. So it wasn't necessarily about game difficulty being used as a metric to extend game length. Because if you wanted a game to be very long, you could only fit so much data on a cartridge, and so you had to make the game harder so that there, or add some element of replayability or something like that, so that people felt the need to play it for more total hours, because you couldn't just make it bigger. And there were these big key moments where people wondered how a game was so big. How was Ocarina of Time so freaking big on an N64? And then there's games that it's all about kind of that replayability. And you look at the success of something like Minecraft, which is monetized through all the extra merchandise and things like that, because for the base price of Minecraft, you get an enormous amount of value. When you look at things like there's really no extra way that I've ever been asked to pay for Minecraft. My account dates back to when I bought it. It was only sold in Euro, and it was in like alpha. And I got to just transfer that account all the way to today. So for like €5 or whatever, I've been playing that game for 15 years, thousands of hours. And it's one of the most popular games in the world. So there is still that same variety today. I don't know that it's in the same ratios but like, I don't know that it can be so blatantly generalized.
Money-hungry games make us feel the same way as modern money-hungry games. Well, it's because the trade of money for game was simple, and there was nothing insidious about the transaction itself. You knew what you were giving, and you knew what you were getting. And if you were to break down the design time of a game into a pie chart at that point, it might look something like this. Story, graphics, narrative connections between them, mechanics, marketing, playtesting, and then how much a go at the arcade costs. This was additional content for a game without being a sequel, but again, gamers didn't hate this because the transaction was very simple to understand and it felt fair. You gave them money, you got an experience designed to be the most fun it could possibly be. The biggest difference in this era is there's no trickery. You're not being manipulated, it's just a straight up understandable product. If we again take the idea of breaking down game development time into a pie chart, you've probably got a few new bits to the pie by now. Magazine adverts and articles, some TV ads, and the arcade price replaced with a box price. But it is still mostly make a good game and you will make good money.
I don't think that's true. I think you still had games being used as an extension of spaces where you had IP like Ninja Turtles or something like that, and a game could be a worse gameplay experience, but because it was the Ninja Turtles game, they knew that it would still ship really well, and the arcades would want to have one in, or the rentals would be able to keep a couple copies constantly flying off the shelves, or they could sell copies of games. You see games like the various different X-Men games and things like that that were part of a larger space. And so he has his pie chart and he's putting all of the pies as equal parts, that they're all just equally sharing in what makes a game. But I don't think it was like that. I think sometimes the game has been part of a larger marketing strategy, no different than something like Marvel today, where you have, it's part of a larger whole where the whole space is what's bringing in the money. The movies, the comics, the merchandise. So I don't know that games have really changed what their goal was. Their goal was to make money from game companies. Game companies have always wanted to make money because that's what companies want to do. But the question is, how can they? There wasn't DLC because, as he noted, there couldn't be a DLC until there could be. And then there was. And so that was actually the moment where he talked about it being this fair transaction. But in a way, that meant that now if DLC was the thing being championed, the best way to have DLC would be to plan for it during the development cycle, which means you are releasing a product that you knowingly have more content ready for that is not available with the base price. And so the moment that Baldur's Gate expansion released, the moment products like that became the norm, obviously you're going to have development studios going, we can have a much better DLC if we actually design room for it in the base game. That makes sense. And so now you start releasing what later starts to make people feel like are partial products because they're going to sell us the rest later. So it's still just following the money. It's just the game companies' tools, their abilities have changed. They don't have the ability to sell as many arcades now, but they do have the ability to sell digital skins. And so that's what they do.
So game developers began to see they didn't actually need to sell a gaming experience anymore. They could instead sell the small adrenaline spike of potential. This was a turning point. A moment investors realized it was completely worthwhile to dedicate at least some game development time, not to the game itself, but to systems within the game designed simply to extract money from the player after they had started playing, but without giving them a complete new game. This is the first part of the puzzle for where we are today. So let's put this idea of sell random chance into a little box. A box of all the design tricks which don't favor the player or make the game necessarily any better. A box of design tricks which don't make you think, oh my god, this is amazing, I need to tell all my friends, but instead use the game as a simple vehicle for additional monetization. Now, the techniques in this box are not games themselves.
Does this box also include t-shirts, collector's editions, miniatures of things in games that are just collectibles, right? Things that do not provide direct value to your life in a really objective way beyond just taking more money in trade for more things surrounding the game. Like, does it include those things? Because at these early turning points, what he's talking about is not anything that wasn't present in trading card game spaces. When you think back to Pokemon craze, Magic the Gathering, it's not anything that isn't present in just gambling in general. What he's talking about is societal. And so, like, if you're talking about this kind of prestige type thing, how broad are we going to take this box? Is it anything that is not tied to direct gameplay from direct money? I'm playing Guild Wars 2 today, and are we talking about the base content and the living seasons are not in the box, but all of the things like skins and stuff are in the box? In which case, where do things that are like utility go? Things like the infinite gathering tools, are those in the box or are those out of the box? Are those simply the wall of the box? Like, where is this line?
Knowing that this box exists and knowing the techniques inside it can make a decent amount of money, the finance people know they need to find space for the techniques within this box somewhere on the pie chart, which means something else must lose out. Jump forward 2 years to 2006. The Western gaming market hasn't yet discovered the mass appeal and psychological dominance that loot boxes have, but they have discovered something just as important. Gamers will pay money to look different. And it all kicks off with this stupid horse. So now developers know expansions are a bit risky, but microtransactions are very safe and very small. Even if they don't sell, it's not a great waste of developer time. So the focus shifted away from selling a main game with lots of expansions to selling the main game and then lots and lots and lots and lots of small additional things. The problem with this is now developers had a vested interest in keeping the coolest cosmetics or the most fun little things out of the base game and instead releasing them as additional microtransactions, which is something we'll see happen more and more. And this absolutely does not favor the player.
So I'm, in general, against microtransactions as just a typical, I would prefer them not to exist, but and I prefer, as a result, subscription-based games because I understand that the types of games I enjoy need constant development, and so they need a constant infusion of revenue, and I would rather that be a straight-up transaction. Just tell me how much you need every month from me as a player, and I will just give that to you so that I don't have to worry about, oh, this month was really hard on us. Could you give us a little bit more? Oh, this month, the thing that you want to do, we actually needed a little more money from that. And so, like, I didn't want the fluctuating. I wanted the regularity of just, I pay this much every month. I can play as much as I want. I can achieve whatever I want, and I'm never going to run into a paywall. And so I prefer subscription-based games, even to buy to play games, because I like that games continue to get updating, and I'm willing to pay for that, but I want it to be up front. That does not mean I only play those games, because I do not make the decision for what games I play entirely off of monetization. It's a factor, sure, but good gameplay is valued way above monetization in my mind. So it's not even some pie chart of all the things that matter where they're all evenly spaced. Good gameplay is the pinnacle, and monetization is one of the many things that fall below that that are a factor. If monetization gets grossly out of pace, maybe it would stop me from playing a game. But good gameplay is the most important thing in determining whether or not I will continue to pick a game up. So, based around not liking microtransactions, let's for a second stop and try to think of this from the development side. Because I think he's done a very good job of talking why it doesn't benefit the player, why the player would not like this. So when you're selling a game, you have to first of all pick your initial buy-in price. So far he's only talking about buy-to-play games, no ongoing revenue model. And so what that means is that you have to set a price. The higher you set it, the more people in the market will not be able or willing to pay that price. So as you raise the price, yes, you're getting more per person, but you are getting less total people. And so typically the game industry has left the price largely the same for about 20 years now. It's been in that kind of $60 range for the vast majority of games, and we are just now starting to see it rise, but it has been multiple decades since we first saw news articles saying, $60, where will it stop? And so it has been a long, long time since we have seen games not cost $60. So we're not going to raise the price, but developers are getting raises. The game industry is expected to make higher fidelity games more often with more content, and they would like to make money. They are now publicly traded these days, so they have a responsibility to shareholders to turn a profit. Their goal is to make money more so than ever before, and yet the base price is fixed. So how do you make money? Well, if you could raise the price for some players of your game, but not all players of your game, that seems like a good solution. But how do you single out 2 players and say, I've got player A, who is just a struggling college student and only has $60. You're lucky you got that much out of them. They probably got it as a Christmas gift from their parents. They are broke. If you would offer to buy them 1 McDonald's hamburger this year, it would change their life. Great. Broke player. But then you've got this mega wealthy player. Look at this trench coat. Oh my. They would be willing to pay $200 if it had cooler looking stuff and more levels, and I got a bigger backpack. Enter microtransactions. What if we could allow these players and every version of players in between them to pay exactly what they wanted to pay to support the game? Ideally, that is to drive additional profit. Ideally, we are not taking a ton of content away from this player to give to this player. So I want to give this player as little of my development time as possible because I want my development time to be available at my base price. There is a world where microtransactions are a beautiful solution. I'm against them because of how they get implemented in many of the times that leave a bad taste in our mouth. But to be against them on the whole and say they should just not be allowed to exist, we should all contact our congressman or whatever, and we should outlaw them, realize then that we have to start finding a price of games where you start seeing games up at $80, $90, $100. So I think he's going to do a good job talking about all the reasons we should not have microtransactions and all the reasons they're bad. But I just want to stop and note that they didn't have to come from a purely malicious place.
Farmville was everywhere in the late 2000s, made by Zynga, and these guys were masters, because Facebook was everywhere, everyone was on it, and even non-gamers were gaming, which sounds great. But they were burning through the game too quickly. They were enjoying it and then just moving on, which was not great, because Facebook is all about retention. So Farmville did something really counterintuitive to increase player retention. They gave you daily energy, so you couldn't progress more than a certain amount every day. And this is game design focused on the formation of daily habits. The psychological power of the habit has been studied for years. Motivational speakers talk about them, self-help books push them, and now gaming companies were looking to use them as a way to turn players into users.
And people like habits. Why is Farmville satisfying? It's satisfying to see I am putting regular investment into something and I am getting a regular return. And because it's a video game and not the real world, it never fails. It's not I spent all this time planting crops in my actual physical garden and I'm watering them every day and I'm tending to them, and then they just don't produce because the weather doesn't work out, or a bug comes in and tears them up, or in the middle of the night some rabbit comes and just shreds the place. They always work. So I can put in regular time and see a regular return, and it feels good. And what's odd about this is it typically gets put, all of the bad parts get put on the development side of things. The developers just want retention. The developers just want my attention on a daily basis. They don't want me to feel like I can take a break or quit. World of Warcraft is known for this. They are villainized, MMORPG-wide, for having chores, choregast, dailies, AP. These phrases just make people have these like shudders down to their very soul. Oh, the chills of the bad daily habits. Enter Dragonflight. Dragonflight drops the dailies from doing basically unlimited dailies with a minimum number every day, never take more than 3 days away, to being 3.5 days, very, very limited number that you can do. What do players do? They receive overwhelming complaints to the point where there is a developer post saying they are talking about possibly reinstilling dailies over the 3.5 day window because players are going, well, then what do I do if I log in every day? Am I just supposed to play the game and have fun? No, 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 no. I need a task list. I need chores. How am I supposed to progress if I'm not hating myself? And I see players create daily goals for themselves. And I hear players complaining the worst part of Dragonflight, and I quote, "I had to kill rares for 11 hours on Saturday. It sucked." Who told you to do that? Nobody. Players will make these habits if the games do not do it for them. That is not to say developers are not absolutely abusing this fact in some cases. They are. It is not to say that industry-wide, every development studio is now at least aware of it, as opposed to before they would have said, what are habits doing in games? And if that is not problematic, it is. But be aware that even were it not there, way back at the time of Farmville, I was playing Farmville, and in between my crops being harvested, I was doing my 100 quests a day for Lore Master inside World of Warcraft. That's not encouraged by Blizzard. That's not a thing they built. It's just a thing I did. And on days I didn't feel like doing quests, I used to go kill a specific number of mobs, and I had an add-on help me track my kills so that I could get rare world drops at a regular interval. Habits work. So he's phrasing this in this way where it's very persuasive, Josh. It's very persuasive. But note that if this is absent, there are players still doing this. If you wonder how there are players that are world best at StarCraft or Smash Brothers, sorry about your tournament, or whatever, all of the world first raters in World of Warcraft, their daily list is substantially longer than any developer could even dream of. And they are not changing that whether they have a cold, whether they would rather be outside where it's beautiful, maybe a friend is in town and they want to hang out with them, but not till later. Let me finish my goals. Some people have turned it into a job.
But this wasn't everything. Nowhere near. Farmville had other strategies. You had timers and you could pay to make them progress faster, but not with money directly. Now you had to convert real money into a proprietary currency. In this case, farm bucks. And this is one of the most prevalent designs we still see used, because it does several psychological things disgustingly well. If you can buy something directly from a game, you can see the cost in a currency that you understand. But if the game displays items in their own proprietary currency, such as gems or coins or platinum or farm bucks or whatever they want to call it, you have to make one mental step converting the currency from what you understand to what you don't understand.
So if they would put the actual dollar amount in it, it would actually alleviate the vast majority of this frustration here. Because there is an advantage to converting to an in-game currency. As a counterpoint to what he's about to describe, the advantage, just keep this in mind as he talks about this, is that if it is real-life dollars, they cannot give them to you. And so if you want to have premium things able to be earned with game time or with game achievement, such as the various achievement milestones within Guild Wars 2 or the upcoming trading post thing or things like that within World of Warcraft, then the advantage of things like this is that the game can distribute to them to you. And they don't have to worry about people cashing out and then how do we deal with taxes and where do we pay them and are we upside down on that player? We don't have to worry about it. All of the money, once it's inside of our walled garden, is inside of our walled garden. And if we want to give away some of the digital assets for free, we can, and they can be identical assets to the ones that we're selling, and we can do both. I would say, like, there are advantages to premium currencies that aren't only, like, manipulative. And because he's called it the abusive monetization box, that implies that everything in there is without redemption, that it is solely a parasite, and that if we removed the parasite, the actual game would be healthier, that it is just draining away and providing nothing in return, ignoring the fact that this money is at least in part spent on development, ignoring the fact that sometimes various tactics such as a premium currency allows them to distribute some of that for free, ignoring all of that. And I don't think that's entirely fair. That starts to maybe think, okay, well, maybe there are occasionally times that you want a parasite, a managed parasite, just a little bit of leeching.
All these things are now one mental step away from having real value, and that is hugely important, because even one step is further than most people are willing to go. So let's add that into the box. Proprietary in-game premium currency to obscure real-world value by a single step. Bonus points if it makes you convert the currency to multiple other in-game currencies, which is almost completely impossible to track in your own mind. So you need to buy the currency, and this is the next trick. The currency is usually sold in packs, and these packs are specifically sized to either be just under what you actually need or very, very close to the next best thing, making you consider the next pack up. For example, if you need 100 gems to buy something in the game and gem packs are sold in packs of 90 or 205, you may as well buy the 205 pack. But then there's a really good item in the game for 210, and you're only 5 gems short. But the next pack contains 500 gems. But there's a mega item for 505 gems, and you're only 5 gems shy of that now. You're not thinking about the number 505, you're thinking it's only 5 and then only another 5. Much smaller jumps for much higher jumps in value. You'd be a fool if you didn't take them, right? So that's going in the box of bad design. But let's say you do buy a pack. Whatever pack you buy, you will spend your unique in-game proprietary currency, but then you'll discover something else. The currency is non-refundable, and it is almost impossible to spend all of it. You'll always be left with some random number, like 4 gems or 2 bits of platinum. It's never 0. And this will bother you, because in your mind, that's a waste, and you don't like waste. And if you don't spend that currency, then the game is keeping it, and you've paid for that. But the only way to make this useful is to buy another currency pack. I mean, you'd be a fool if you didn't do that, right? You can't have premium currency just sitting there in strange, unspendable amounts. It's annoying. And it's by design. So add that to the box. But maybe you know all this, and you're not a fool. You won't spend a lot, you'll wait for a sale, but oh look, you're a brand new player and there's an offer. A load of premium currency, a boost, a few cosmetics. It's a limited time offer, and it's all for the low price of just under $1. Now, you'd definitely be a fool if you didn't buy this. If you've ever wondered why the intro packs to almost any game are such good value, it's because studies have shown people who buy a single purchase are much more likely to make another purchase. So you want to make the first purchase really enticing. And it's because some phones need you to authorize in-app purchases. But once you have authorized one, it will not double check for any extra purchases. So you confirm that you want to buy the cheap pack, and then it doesn't double check for the expensive packs, because every screen between the player and a purchase is a moment they could doubt and reconsider. So you want to get those, "Are you sure you want to purchase this?" checks agreed with and out the way early. Unusually cheap intro microtransactions just to get you into a habit. Let's add that to the box. And while the box is...
The fact that there is no way to buy... I understand them not selling me 5 tokens, right? Because if 5 tokens is 5 cents, then maybe literally they lose money on the credit card transaction fee and all of that. But if I want to buy 505 because it costs 505, it should say, hey, there's a discount on buying your first 500 at 20% off, and then the next 5 will be sold at your 1 penny per. And so you buy your first 500 gems or whatever for $4 because we got a bundle on that, and then your next 5 will be 5 cents. So for $4.05, you can just pay it. You can just pay it. And so if it costs me $3.27 for the pack, and you have a $3 bundle, and then the other 25 cents is at a lower return rate, that would be fine. I get it. Whatever. Screw with me. The real world does. I'll move on. What I don't like is there is no way to do that. This is the base price to get in. And if a game thinks they can do that for free, like Guild Wars 2, that's great. And if a game doesn't, like World of Warcraft, then they give you a very limited free trial, and then they move you straight onto their subscription model. And it's very transparent. And you say, subscription is going to cost me this every month. And they say, yeah, it was going to do that anyway. Let's just broach the subject right now, rip that Band-Aid off. And if you are not willing to pay $15 a month to try basically unlimited content all the way up to the current expansion, then the game probably isn't for you anyway. And like, let's just get that out of the way. I don't want to sit here and think about, well, I won't get a chance at this starter pack again. Is it good? If it was good, they should have given it to you. And the game should have just had a base price of $3.27 or whatever crap it needed to be. So I fully agree with him on this. This starts to be wildly manipulative. This starts to absolutely be a bunch of people sitting outside the train station looking for people that are new in town to just scam them, take their wallets, steal their luggage, and rob them. So this is not true in all games. This should not villainize all games, but when this is true, it gets really gross really fast. really, really fast. You'll notice I named Guild Wars 2 a microtransaction-based economy and how they did this well. And then I named World of Warcraft a company villainized for putting transactions on top of a subscription and how they did this well. It does not mean you have to be a good game or a bad game. You could think one of those games is trash. But they both say to a new player, it's fine, just hop in. Now, their store is technically available. They have to walk past the same display as everybody else, but I don't see either one of them saying, so I noticed you've been playing for 15 minutes, and if in the next 23 minutes you can get your credit card out and give me your CVV, then I got a bargain for you that I need you not to tell anybody. This is kind of a big deal. You seem like you know a lot about the game, and so you can tell that this is just a heck of a bargain. Like, stop doing that.
To truly see how effective this ugly design can be, we only need to go forward 1 year to 2010 and look at FIFA's Ultimate Team mode. Now, I'm not really into football games, but the FIFA franchise of games actually highlights the game design shift really well. It shows how games have moved from being a fun experience by themselves to a fun enough framework that other monetization tactics will cling to like limpets. In FIFA, you can buy loot boxes, which contain random cards of players, and use these to build up your Ultimate Team. The Ultimate Team mode takes several of the box ideas and combines them, and now the Ultimate Team mode makes more money than the box sales of FIFA itself. In fact, since 2018, FIFA Ultimate Team has generated over $1 billion in revenue per year for EA. In 2021, they made 1.6 billion. And it happens every single year. And the cards you buy in the Ultimate Team for 1 year cannot be used in the next year, meaning the microtransactions now have a shelf life. Horse armor may last forever, but what if it didn't? What if you could make a player pay for it again and again every year? Let's add that to the box. Yearly repeating microtransactions. Now,
I can't imagine why I like MMORPGs. Where my WoW character, I think, is old enough to drive in the United States. What's the math on that? Oh, definitely. I think my WoW druid can vote in some jurisdictions. Some people might be against that. So, like, I don't understand this. So it doesn't bother me as much as it has at battle passes in the past. So maybe we're going to see a turning point here where battle passes are a little more okay. I think battle passes so far have been the best answer of how to do this.
Dead Space 3 did something strange. It took the idea of you being a lone engineer trapped on an infested spaceship, struggling against incredible odds, using only your small collection of mining tools and very limited ammunition to survive, and it added in the ability to let you buy in-game guns with real cash from the cash shop. A horror survival game selling you in-game guns and ammo, completely defeating the atmosphere and vibe the game was going for. Selling players things they could use within your game to make the game easier. Let's add that to the box. That's effectively selling power. This one manages to out-monetize even the arcade. It would be like putting more coins into Time Crisis.
Selling power is weird. Because here in the West, selling power is seen as always bad. It's never been good. It's never been reasonable. And I don't like buying power. Because I look at a game as dollars per hour of entertainment. The more hours of entertainment I can get per dollar, the more I'm winning as the consumer. And so why would I want to give up some of my entertainment for more dollars? Now you're taking the total number of hours of entertainment and making it smaller, and the total number of dollars and making it bigger. And so the fraction got worse. So that's a losing proposition for me. However, I have a friend who makes a great deal more money than me, and he doesn't get to play games very long. And so, if a game has multiple points in its life cycle, I am currently playing World of Warcraft with him. He had not played World of Warcraft in probably 6 or so years. Every time we meet, we go ride bikes or something once a week. We used to sit and drink together in 2020. Anytime we could slip over to each other's house and drink, that's what we would do. And we have shifted to now we ride bicycles outside together. We're both becoming better usses. And as we do that, we enjoy chatting about what's going on in our life. And naturally, I talk about MMORPGs a great deal. He's familiar with them. He played them for a lot of years, so he can keep up, but he doesn't play them currently. And somewhere along the line, the amount of things I've had to say positive about Dragonflight said, you know what, I think I'm going to hop back in just for like a month. Let me just hop in for maybe a month or two. I'll play with you. I don't know if I'll stick around, but I'll try it out. You've been singing high praises. As long as you'll kind of join me for some of my leveling. No problem. I love doing things with you. So now, one or two evenings a week, in addition to our weekend bike rides, we play World of Warcraft together. I helped him level where I could. He did some leveling on his own, and now he's max level. Once he hit max level, there is now a middle step between him and ultimately what he wanted to do when he came back. He wanted to run Mythic Plus. In Guild Wars 2, that system would be referred to as Fractals. People say Fractals inspired Mythic Plus. Mythic Plus actually came out of challenge mode, and it's actually older than Fractals. So if Mythic Plus stole Fractals, they stole it from the future. So timelines are weird. And New World would call this Mutators. Final Fantasy would call this Criterion. It is a challenging dungeon mode, and we were going to run it together. We have a couple other friends playing the game. Hopefully we can get to a 5-man. If not, we can be the bulk of a 5-man. Should be a great time. We'll sit around and have some laughs 1, maybe 2 nights a week. The gap between max level, which he enjoys leveling, he enjoys questing, he enjoys being out in the world killing things, and getting into Mythic Plus is all about an item level grind. There are multiple methods of item level grinding: PvP, doing dailies, killing rare mobs, doing the lower difficulty dungeons, but ultimately none of those really appeal to him. And yet, there is also one called crafting, and that crafting one can be bought and sold on the auction house. With enough in-game gold, you could literally purchase your way past a portion of this level grind. So, what did he do? He bought a couple of WoW tokens. It made his entire leveling process very, very comfortable. Every time he started to feel that he got a little behind on the gear score because he ran some dungeons as he leveled and just didn't get drops, he went ahead and just bought a piece of gear off the auction house. And it solved it. It didn't make him God mode. When we played together, there were still some pulls I out DPS'd him. It didn't teach him how to play the game. It just replaced gear score that ultimately was an option to go pursue fixing that through one of those systems that did not appeal to him. And so now at max level, he basically skyrocketed himself up to like 338. That's about the amount he was willing to spend WoW tokens worth. For those of you that play WoW, all that really did was get him to where we can start to take him into Mythic, and it's not a big deal. As soon as you're 340 or above, you could be a Mythic. It drops 370s. It's going to be a huge jump. There's meant to be a tier in between, but because we have pre-made groups, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. And he did it with money, and he bought power. He didn't buy more power than me. My item level's higher than his. He didn't buy a ridiculous amount of power. He just shortcutted the portion. And so I had somebody describing to me who is from a different country. They grew up with a different interaction with video games, and they feel different about buying power. And they basically said, okay, let me explain it to you in your own terms. And they explained it to me in my own terms, which I appreciate. I look at dollar per hour of joy. But that means any hour spent in the game that is not a joyous hour does not count towards the ratio. It's just a chore. Now, if during that hour, I could instead go out and ride my bike or play with my dog, go for a walk with my wife, would that be more enjoyable? Absolutely it would. Well, what if you had a little bit of extra money? What if you had those sweet, sweet trench coat dollars? Well, if you had some trench coat dollars, you could actually skip that hour of gameplay. Yes, it would go to the bottom of the fraction, but that hour wasn't going to add to the top of the fraction anyway. Wouldn't it be nice if they offered an option for people who don't care how big the bottom of the fraction gets, as long as the top of the fraction grows? So if in 10 hours of gameplay, they can have 10 hours of joy, that's their metric. And if there's a middle hour that is fun for some people, but not for them, is that a big deal? Now, should developers be putting in an hour that's not fun for everybody? No, but I actually liked the act of grinding gear. So I hope they don't take that away, but he doesn't. And so he bypassed that step with money.
Dota 2 released what many consider the first major battle pass system. Now, when this craze started, I remember walking into gaming shops and seeing the phrase battle pass everywhere, and I had no idea what they were. Effectively, they are optional purchases which unlock a series of challenges or processes you can go through to unlock more stuff in the game, but they are time sensitive. So you buy the monthly battle pass, and if you play a certain number of hours, or kill a certain number of enemies, or achieve a certain number of whatever it wants you to do, you can advance along the battle pass and unlock new stuff. Now, you could just have the unlockable stuff be available for everyone to unlock anyway, but by limiting it to a timed battle pass, you're doing a few manipulative things. You're creating a fear of missing out, or FOMO.
Honestly, battle passes, the coolest thing I've seen lately is that they're starting to see this concept where battle passes don't expire. You're buying an amount of content that you will get trickled to you. And so it is more akin to buying a year of popcorn a month, and once a month for the next year you're going to get popcorn in the mail. And so you're buying little endorphin hits. And so what battle passes that do not have expirations do very well is they say that you are going to keep playing this game every time that you want to, and it's fun. And if you offer us this additional microtransaction, which I've said, not all microtransactions have to be bad, then we will guarantee extra things for you in the future. How often? It's up to you. We've got 100 levels of rewards. They range from big to small. They're spread across the whole thing. You want to blitz it in a weekend? Go nuts. You want to play 1 or 2 hours a week for the next 100 weeks? That's fine too. If you're good at the game, you're going to get the rewards faster. That's okay. But ultimately, if you keep playing the game and keep having fun in it, you will eventually get all the rewards. It still tells them that you will most likely put this many hours into the game. They will know how far people progress on average, and they can now bank on you being monthly active users or whatever stat they're looking for. So it still benefits them beyond the money. It's still retention. So non-expirational battle passes feel substantially better to me. That is by far the best evolution of this system I've seen so far.
Now, you can earn an average of 250 credits per 10-minute match at the time, so you'd have to grind for roughly 40 hours of constant gameplay, longer than the average completion time of most video games, to unlock a single rare character. Or you could pay crystals in the premium shop and spend those on hero crates and just hope. EA responded to this Reddit complaint saying the reason crates were so expensive or take so long to unlock is to give a sense of pride and accomplishment to players who did manage to unlock them. This becomes the most downvoted comment in Reddit history. So, locking premium parts of your full-priced game behind either hours of grind or spending even more money to unlock the cool stuff
Was EA the ones that defended loot boxes as being surprise loot mechanics? I really hope that EA, somewhere in some deep dungeon where there's this beautiful conference table that shareholders get to walk in and meet, people who are going to spend megabucks or whatever, they get to come in, and I hope they have like headlines and Guinness records for all the things they've done that are really great. EA has brought some truly iconic franchises to light. They have locked down some IPs that no one else has been able to do. They have set revenue records for things that are just preposterous. And they also hold records for, the most downvoted Reddit comment. And so, like, I just hope that I hope that somebody there has a sense of humor about this. Because EA has also built up some of the most hated moments in gaming. Like, core gamers have just this disdain for EA at some point in their gaming career. Maybe you like them right now, maybe you don't. But at some point in your life, EA will do something that just makes you go, why? Why? Maybe they'll buy Maxis, and you're a huge SimCity fan, and you're excited to see what their level of revenue and flex and ability can do with this. And they instead decide that that's going to be their moment to push into making sure that it's not going to be in something you can install across multiple computers. And if you're somebody like a college kid that burns through computers because your architecture classes do that, you're going to have to rebuy the game every 3 computers. Cool. I don't know. Think of how you want to put that on your wall, EA. It should be on there, because it's definitely something you did that I have not attributed to anybody else. So it's got to be a record of some kind.
And then, 5 years later, Diablo Immortal happened. Now, I've already covered Diablo Immortal pretty extensively in the video The Diabolically Immoral Diablo Immortal and its follow-up about the legendary crests, because it took basically every idea from the big box of abusive monetization and sprinkled them liberally over a somewhat Diablo-looking game, including multiple premium currencies, a deliberately similar in-game item which functions slightly differently to a paid version of the same thing, and multiple battle passes all called different things. But don't worry, because everyone assured me that Diablo Immortal was a mobile game, and thus would not be representative of the actual next Diablo game, which would be Diablo 4. Everyone told me Diablo 4 would be a full game by itself, with no cash shop, with gameplay first, and none of the strategies from the big box of badness. So of course there are various digital versions of the game, the more expensive ones giving you an accelerated battle pass bonus, allowing you to progress quicker, and there is a cosmetic cash shop using its own proprietary currency. And if you're thinking Diablo doesn't need all these extra bells and whistles to be a good Diablo game, you are correct. These have not been added because they make the game better, they've been added because they make the game money. That making a game is often no longer about the game, at least not for the people in charge of the money. The game is now simply a life support system for as many of these systems as you can design into it. The game is a host, and the parasite of monetization has begun to take over, and the unfortunate reality is this works. Even with a breakout incredible success like Elden Ring, which won Game of the Year and sold over 18 million copies as of this video, at $60 a sale, that's over $1 billion in sales worldwide, that is still slightly shy of how much money Genshin Impact made this year. It is still shy of how much money FIFA Ultimate Team has made every year for the last 4 years. But personally, I also know it can be very cathartic to be angry at a thing instead of a concept, so let's all just collectively agree to blame the stupid horse.
Alright. Well, that was awesome. I do find this stuff frustrating. I don't think that everything in the box is without merit. I think there's a key moment in his final description there that when it was unnecessary. If there is something that jibes with the way that game is fun, then it works out fine, you know? And so there are plenty of times that a game does not feel predatory and it is asking for extra money. It's just a question of how that works. And so I think that's where Diablo Immortal went wrong, is they didn't say, hey, we have a game, how are we going to monetize it? They said, how can a game be monetized? And they just went check, 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 check. Because I play mobile games and some of their monetization strategies feel fine. Others don't. And that really varies game over game over game, which ones feel fine and which ones don't. So I think a lot of the strategies there in Diablo Immortal on their own are fine. There is a good version of a battle pass that is what it is. They need to make extra money, I get it. But having multiple battle passes and confusing is a problem. Having premium currencies, there are times when that is done very well. Guild Wars 2 giving me currency, it makes sense that they also then sell the currency. It doesn't feel like a bad deal. They're a non-subscription game that lets me get to max level for free. Having some premium stuff makes sense. So I think you find the microtransaction method that works for you and you stay with that one. And when you start talking about adding an additional microtransaction method, you need to be really careful, because when it starts to be 2 or 3 or 10 different ways that you're doing this, somewhere in there you're very likely picking one that just doesn't jive with your game. But thank you, Josh. Absolutely wonderful. An amazing job as usual. And to his initial comment, I too love video games. And I absolutely love a new video from Josh Dreyfus.